All right,
Hey everyone.
welcome back.
Yeah. For those of you that didn't watch the earlier dev stream, I'm Bobby. I'm a game designer.
And I'm Thibaut. I'm an engineer.
Cool. So we're gonna do a really pretty quick dev stream today. We're gonna first talk a little bit about patching for the open alpha, and then Thibaut's gonna play a game with Mark, sort of heckling him and commentating. So first, about patching for the open alpha. So we're hoping to get a patch out every week or two, and these for now and for at least the next couple are going to be some pretty minor patches to try and address a lot of the feedback we're getting about the game on a short-term timeline. So for those of us that haven't been playing in the pre-alpha, what does patching actually mean?
Yeah, so you might have seen that already, but we have basically two different ways of patching the game and the client. We can separately patch the game client itself, and that's what you'll see when you load the client. You sometimes see a little window is updating. That will only affect the game client itself, so the chat and stuff like that. And sometimes you'll also see a progress bar and a download message play button within the client, and that's when the actual game patch is left.
Yeah, exactly. So we've been getting a lot of great feedback from you guys. Thanks a ton for all the forum posts, for talking to us in chat, Reddit, Twitter, everywhere. And thanks for helping make the launch so great. So we've collected feedback over the past few days and been testing some changes internally. And we're hoping to get a patch out by 5 today when the preview window opens. And we're going to have patch notes up shortly beforehand. So like I said, we're going to try to get patches out every week or two for the foreseeable future. These patches, for now, are going to focus mostly on some art improvements. So people will talk a little bit about that. Balance changes that we think are sort of necessary. Some bug fixes, stability fixes, and then also trying to address some of the game flow and systemic issues that we think the game has. So again, for a full list of patch notes, I'm not going to dive into everything here. I'm going to kind of touch on the high level things. We'll have an actual full change list out in a few hours.
Yeah, and you'll be able to see that on the forums end.
Exactly. Yep. So to dive into each of these briefly, balance-wise, we've been getting a lot of feedback about balance. People have very strong opinions, and that's good to see. And we've been sort of coalescing and trying to put together what we think is a reasonable set of changes. We don't want to do anything too dramatic too quickly because the game is still very fresh, but we think there are some big offenders. So there are two really broad camps of units that we're looking at addressing right now. One, there are some that are just way too overbearing, a little too suffocating to play against. The big two that we've got our eyes on are the Ember Fiend and the Conduit. So we're going to put in some pretty decent nerfs to them today. Yeah. We'll have to see if they're enough. We feel like they're actually still pretty strong, so we don't think we've butchered the unit by any means, but Ember Fiend hit the unit cap a little bit, and we hit the size of the heat wave. The Conduit, we touched the range and the damage a little bit, so keep giving us feedback about those. We've also got our eyes on the Apocalypse and the Deadeye. So the Apocalypse, we did a slight change, but we're just kind of waiting and seeing on the Deadeye a little bit. The other set of units are just units that really aren't getting much play at all. And so for these, we're looking to try and buff them up a little bit, see if they start getting picked up, to see if we can just sort of expand the pool of playable, viable units. So the big ones that we touched on this week, we think this isn't like a full set of them. There are a lot of other units that need a lot of love. These were some simple ones that we started to address. So the Aquanaut just statistically wasn't very efficient for its cost. We buffed up the numbers a bit. And then we did some quality of life improvements to the Cinder Beetle and the Mystic to help make them a little easier to play, be able to execute sort of their play loop a little more cleanly. And we started touching on the Grove Tender a bit to try and make its identity more about poking and slower territory control, sort of like setting up a bunch of Needle Ferns to take over an area and trying to do chip damage at the opponent. Right now it's just sort of like throw down a bunch of Needle Ferns wherever you want damage to be. And even though it wasn't that strong, it just wasn't that interesting. There are other balance changes that I didn't touch on here, but again, it'll all be in the notes. Yeah, so what about art changes?
So art changes, We're also going to stay pretty generic there. You'll see a couple of map changes, mostly around the camp areas and the brushes. We've improved readability on the brushes a little bit. Let us know what you think about it.
Yeah.
And added just some key props around the... Another part is that we now got in Celeste's Ultimate VFX. You'll see a pretty big change there. Thank you, John.
Yeah.
And as always, just let us know what you think about it. Let us know what you would want to see addressed next. Always looking for that feedback.
Exactly. Yep, there should be some bug fixes and stability fixes too. You'll see exactly in the patch notes what we think we hit. We think we fixed some of the more major
most
issues.
Most egregious ones, definitely the ones that definitely prevented people from playing. Some just hard crashes when you launch the game. We got a few of those out. We're still working on a few of them, but the biggest one are definitely addressed.
But keep sending in bug reports. That's super helpful.
As always, yep.
Yeah, because we only have a small subset of machines here to test on, so you guys are really hammering it hard.
Yeah, thank you for that.
Yes. Sure. So the last bit of the patches, game flow changes and sort of more systemic changes. We've noticed that a decent chunk of the games are going on a little too long for us to be comfortable with. And we've also sort of felt that the early game starts a little too slowly. So we're trying to tackle both of these together since they're very related, to try and take those long games and shrink them a bit, and to sort of accelerate the pace of the early game, kind of eat into that early game lull. So starting off the game, you're going to start with a hero already spawned. You're going to have a couple tier 1 units too, and you're going to start with some shards. This should allow people to get to medium tier armies a little faster before the first Titan fight even, and to just sort of start clearing camps a little faster. Camps also across the board, you hit the health a little bit just so you can clear them a little bit faster. Not a huge change, but a little bit faster. As for the game past the very beginning, we're just looking at shrinking that game length down, not doing anything like making the third Titan considerably stronger, or the fourth Titan considerably stronger, so it ends there. We just want to take those games and shrink them down. So the first Titan's going to spawn at 3 minutes, a little earlier. The Titan fights themselves should take a little bit less time, and the Titans will respawn a little faster. So it's just sort of across the board tightening that gameplay a bit, which we hope will start to eat into the longer game lengths.
While still keeping the same game.
Exactly, exactly. So that... We're going to keep tabs on game pacing, keep giving us feedback about it. We're hoping to see fewer 50-minute games. Those 50-minute games should be closer to 35, hopefully, is what we're trying to scrunch everything down to. Another thing that we've gotten a lot of feedback on, and we've felt ourselves personally too, is just that a lot of the times the game is a little too rigid. There's always pretty much one place to be, or one set of objectives up at a time. It's okay, you know, camps, critters, Titan fight, camp, Titan fight, camp, Titan fight, and you mix some pushes in there with the Titans. But there's always this like intense focus on gameplay objectives. So we think that actually we're not going to do anything too dramatic here yet. We are investigating what some more dramatic changes would look like, but actually just shrinking the pacing and accelerating the Titan respawns internally for us has meant that more often you see multiple objectives up at once. The camps will tend to be up more often, and the Titans will spawn, and you have to make a little bit more of a judgment call about, okay, do we clear this camp now and then go to the Titan late? Do we just defend the Titan? Hopefully that'll make the decision making a little messier, but it's not too dramatic of a change. Another thing we're trying to do that we think is not too intrusive is try and get more mileage out of the Juggernauts and the Engineers. We felt like they were in a pretty good state for the early game. They can knock down outer towers, they can create split push threats and areas of interest away from the Titan fight, but there's a huge dip in the mid game where they just became useless. They weren't really going to poke at warp spires or healing generators. They were just there to kill outer towers. Their level 4 upgrade made them pretty strong, but by the time people got to that, the Titans were the Titans were the main thing. It didn't matter as much. So we're taking those level 4 upgrades and we're moving them to tech level 3. So hopefully you should have a more natural flow of, okay, you know, I'm poking down the outer towers, I'm teching up, the early game's a little faster now. I can get that engineer upgrade, that juggernaut upgrade, to create a pretty good mid-game threat at some of the deeper structures. So those are just to kind of like shrink the game a little bit and to try and make the decision making a little messier. We also got a lot of feedback that unit movement felt a little sluggish, so we're trying a slight tweak to make the units across the board a little bit faster, about an 8% movement speed buff. And so far it's felt pretty decent internally.
Pretty good,
yeah. It hasn't felt too dramatic. Maybe the first time you move a unit, you're like, oh, feels a little different.
You still feel it, yeah, for sure.
But we think it's good, and we'll continue to monitor it. So give us feedback about how it feels.
What do you think about the interaction with the AoEs and stuff like that?
Yeah, it could potentially have some balance implications on the ranges of units, the ranges of abilities, and how AoE plays out. We think those changes are probably actually for the better right now, but we'll see if we feel that this makes AoE too weak, or some of the ranges not long enough.
As always, we'll keep an eye on it, and if you bring it up to us, we'll definitely address it.
Yep, exactly. We've also heard a lot about pathfinding. And pathfinding is a really difficult problem that we've sunk a lot of time into over the years. We haven't done any major tweaks today for this patch, but Harrison did some work to try and make units move around critters and camps a little more fluidly, a little more intuitively. So if you feel that the pathing has improved there, let us know. If you feel like you're still struggling, and just keep in general giving us particular scenarios, if you can, where units don't do what you want them to do, where they take a weird route, where they get stuck, and we're just going to continue to work on it.
And as with everything else here, like particular replays with particular like timing windows we have to look at, like that helps a lot. If you're like, oh, look at this game at 5 minutes, like I couldn't path through X and Y, like those particular cases will help us isolate exactly what we.
Yep, exactly. The last really quick thing is we got some feedback that damage numbers or damage types were a little confusing. It was hard for someone to look at a unit and say, oh, okay, this is going to do this amount of damage to this class of unit. So we've just kind of reworked how the damage is presented to you. It should be a little more intuitive. Read the patch notes.
And again, that's mostly that's only visual, right? The actual gameplay hasn't changed. It's just how we present that information.
Yep. Cool. So that's the high level for the patch that's going out today. Patch notes online. Keep giving us great feedback. As for changes in the future, we're again hoping to get a patch out every week or two. Keep giving us unit feedback, art feedback, feedback about the gameplay and the game flow. We internally have some things that we're keeping an eye on for the game flow. We're afraid of backdooring creeping up a little bit. We still want to keep looking at how we can try and make areas outside of the Titan interesting. But for now, just focusing this patch on more minor tweaks. But I think that about covers it. Anything that we missed?
I think that sounds good. I don't remember if we mentioned it. When does the patch land?
Yeah, so the patch should go live when the PvP window is up at 5. And patch notes will be out shortly before.
Cool. Good.
Great.
All right. Thank you, Bobby.
Yeah.
I'll stay here. We'll take a quick break. Probably Mark is going to come in and just help me and play through a game.
Yeah. Awesome. Thanks, guys.
All right, cool. Thanks.